Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Women in Agriculture Scotland webinar and AGM in association with Royal Bank of Scotland. My name is Mary White, Relationship Manager in Agriculture with Royal Bank of Scotland based in Ayrshire. The event is being recorded. There will be a chance for Q&A at the end, so please submit your questions throughout the webinar and we'll endeavour to answer them. The aim of Women in Agriculture Scotland is to support, inspire and develop women in Scottish agriculture to achieve their aspirations and create a more progressive, successful and inclusive industry. The objects of the association are to support members to build and foster networks within the agricultural industry, to act on behalf of members to influence and further progression of women in agriculture, to achieve equality and opportunity in the industry, to inspire members to reach their full potential and to develop members personally and professionally. In March 2019, Alison Rose, CEO of NatWest Holdings, set out the findings and recommendations of an independent review into female entrepreneurship, as commissioned by the Treasury in September 2018. The Rose Review found 5 key barriers that lead to lower rates of entrepreneurship amongst women. Number 1, lower access and awareness of capital. Number 2, greater risk awareness. Number 3, perceived missing skills and experience. Number 4, disproportionate primary caring responsibilities. And number 5, lack of sponsorship or role models. Yet it is found that by boosting female entrepreneurship, that 250 billion would be added to the UK economy, which is massive. To date, there has been significant progress in a number of key areas, including the launch of Investing in Women Code, the NatWest announcement to ring-fence 1 billion of funding for female-led businesses and access to a banking expert in residence for 38 UK local enterprise partnerships. During COVID-19, it's been found that many female entrepreneurs have been resilient by embracing change and pivoting their business or taking stock at what changes can be made as the economy recovers. We saw women investing in their business by developing new tech solutions and expanding services. Demands also increased for childcare and caring for elderly relatives while trying to run a business at the same time. We've been told by business leaders that the right networking and opportunities are needed through virtual events such as this and in person when it becomes safe. This leads me on to letting you know that through the Royal Bank of Scotland, we have an online digital hub for new start and growth businesses which can support. It's called Business Builder. Here there are various articles, events and workshops to suit every sector. The Business Continuity and Resilience Toolkit will help protect your business. There's information on funding packages, workshops, modules, including mindset, customer focus and marketing. You can also join an online business community that can widen your network and be another form of support, as well as Women in Agriculture Scotland. I would now like to hand you over to June Garrier, who is the Chairman of WIAS, who will open up our AGM. Hand over to you, June.
Thank you. Firstly, a big thank you to the Royal Bank of Scotland for their fantastic support throughout our journey. And thank you to our current committee, amongst us who are Ailett Rowan, Carrie Curry, Catherine Sloan, Emma Patterson-Taylor, Gemma Cooper, Johnny Willett, Katrina Barclay, Mary White and Nina Clancy, who should all be on this slide that you can see. This was not a committee where you simply wore a badge. Everyone has worked really hard to progress Women in Agriculture Scotland to this stage. In the past, we have hosted our autumn event at the Royal Bank of Scotland's prestigious facilities at Gogarburn. However, times have changed, and during this pandemic, we're indebted to them to meet via this webinar, which means I don't need to announce that there are no fire alarms expected, where the exit doors and toilets are, and to remember to ask for the code to let you out of the car park. So, Women in Agriculture Scotland. This is our 6th November activity, and I'm now going to pass you over to Stephen Young, who will manage the AGM for us.
Thanks, June. Good morning, everyone. It comes up on the slide there's my role as head of policy in Scotland and the States. However, sorry, can we just go back to the slides? So we're jumping forward. Yeah, I've worked with a huge number of groups and organisations on strategy and governance over the past few years, so that's probably why I've been involved here. I'd like to thank the steering committee for asking me to be part of this and just to handle this section of the meeting. Hopefully it won't be too painful. We'll go through and things will be quite smooth. It's been a pleasure of mine to work with this group over the past few years. Started off looking at strategy and a review of opportunities for women in agriculture, but we also looked at the structure of the group and what was the best to move things forward. It's important to get the right structure for any group, and we looked at whether it should be a charity, a co-op, or an association, and we understood the issues around liability and the opportunities it could create with funding and what was there. So the steering committee being extremely professional in their approach to this. We now have a formal constitution in place, which is available to members if you wish. I think it was included in an invite to this meeting. And the structure chosen is that of an unincorporated association. So it's a fully democratic association, but with a very simple constitution. But there is the opportunity for all to be involved. I've been involved in setting up a number of groups over the years. I don't think any have come close to signing up 500 members in just a couple of weeks. I think you should all be very proud of what's happened here and the passion that's been shown for this group. I think it's a great example of not worrying about the ins and outs and governance and who's in charge, who gets the credit at the start, but seeing what is needed, getting on and doing it. And that's worked really well, and then putting the processes and things in later on. And this does bring some issues with it as well, having signed up 500 new members. It's quite tricky as well that we're having to put in place a whole new committee from a very broad membership at one meeting. So ideally, the committee would have time to understand each other's skills and availability, what they want to be involved in, and also raises some technical issues for us at the AGM. Therefore, we're going to propose a motion that will allow the committee some time once they're voted in to develop their thoughts on this, to understand who wants to play each role and understand what skills they have. So the motion that I'm just going to propose first is that the membership agrees that the role of chair, vice chair, secretary and treasurer should be decided at the first meeting of the steering committee following the AGM and reported to the membership as soon as possible. This will hopefully get us past some of these issues and not rush into things if we can. On this motion, if anyone disagrees, that's the motion up on your screen now. Could you just say so now in the chat box? I think if you come out of the full screen mode, you should see a chat box on the right-hand side, which allows you to type any comments in. If anyone disagrees with this, if you could let me know, that would be great. But if not, the best and easiest course of action, I think, is for the committee to make these decisions amongst themselves at the first meeting, and then next year we can move into a more formal structure of having these proposed at the AGM. Does anyone, I'll give you just a minute to do that. If there's no comments, then we can move on. Okay, I don't think there's anyone objecting to that. I'll just pass back to June and then Ailey, who will give you the chair and treasurer report, and then we can follow up with the results of the member reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So, Women in Agriculture Scotland, this is our, can you believe, our 6th November activity. The idea began in April 2015 when the Royal Highland Agricultural Society of Scotland took a table of 10 at the Women of Scotland lunch in Glasgow. That's an annual event set up to celebrate the great achievements of women in Scotland. It's a fun day out where women of all ages get a chance to dress up, meet friends, network, and be inspired by some incredible speakers. Our table comprised of 3 Lady Royal Highland directors, of which I was one, Catherine Jenkins from the Royal Bank of Scotland, with the remaining guests being women who worked in the agricultural field. And in spite of there being 300 ladies in attendance, our table stayed together and chatted happily about our life in agriculture. And so we thought this would be a great idea to adopt. The Scottish Agricultural Organisation Society, or SAOS, had also started a Women in Agriculture initiative around the same time. So we decided to join forces and Women in Agriculture Scotland was born. The Royal Bank of Scotland kindly offered to host it at Gogarburn in November 2015, and off we went. I describe it as an event where women who work with tractors in their yard meet those in agriculture who don't have tractors in their yard. They share ideas, inspire others, and listen to some very interesting speakers. We're a standalone voluntary organisation, and we've hosted a spring and autumn daytime event every year since November 2015 for up to 180 people from all over Scotland and from all organisations. Our autumn events have been held at Gogarburn and the spring events at the Royal Highland Centre, Ingliston, Battleby Conference Centre, Perth, and at Broomhall House, Dunfermline, by kind permission of the Earl of Elgin and the Bruce family. Our speakers have included the Scottish Government's agricultural champions, Minette Batters, just a few weeks before she became President of NFU England and Wales, and some stars from BBC's This Farming Life. We're going from strength to strength, and I'm very proud to have been part of this journey. For me, I've learned so much over the past 5 years and have made lots of wonderful new contacts. I've been inspired to discuss and update our families' wills, appoint powers of attorney, and register land. I've been introduced to some of the workings and people of various agricultural organisations, and I've met so many ladies who want so many things. Some are leading the way in their business, some just want to learn more about diversifying and making money, some simply want to learn what to do in times of crisis at home, because too often it's women that are left to sort things out. But most importantly, it's about expanding our knowledge, sharing experience, and supporting each other, which leads to personal development with other like-minded people out there, giving us the confidence to move forward and grow. Do you know, it took us quite a bit of time to come up with the title Women in Agriculture Scotland, and since we began, many other initiatives have sprung up with similar names. Firstly, the Scottish Government. The year after we started in 2016, a division of the Scottish Government commissioned a 200-page report on women in farming and the agriculture sector, which was completed and launched at the Royal Highland Show 2017 by the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. Also that year at the Royal Highland Show, Fergus Ewing formed the Women in Agriculture Task Force to give women in farming access to the same development opportunities as men in this sector. He co-chaired this with Joyce Campbell, the famous sheep farmer from Sutherland, and they gave their final report at the end of last year. NFU Scotland supported various initiatives as well. Dumfries and Galloway had the Dairy Women's Network, which was launched in 2017, supported by NFU Scotland, and that was followed by another women's group in Argyll. The Farm Advisory Service also fund a series of free women in agricultural events throughout Scotland, delivered by the SAC consulting staff, offering inspiration and advice for women working in Scottish agriculture. I've had the pleasure of attending a few of these, and there are some available online, which is a great facility in current times. So with the help of Stephen Young and our committee, we are delighted with the level of engagement that we've seen as our little group has emerged into a fully fledged organisation. We now have a proper format, a smart new logo, and have prepared for the new committee to drive our organisation forward to support, inspire and develop Scottish women in agriculture. I wish the new committee every success, and I really look forward to the new achievements that will be made. So now can Ailett give us the financial report.
Thank you, June. Hopefully they'll bring the slide up showing the, thank you. So a little bit of information in the backstory behind this. It's only recently in the last couple of months that the group, since finalising itself, has had its own bank account. The Royal Highland Agricultural Society have very kindly in the past looked after our money for us and been allowed us to access it when needed. But with the formalisation of the group, it was important that we had our own bank account. So since then, we have now got a statement basically to show you. In the past, income has been derived from tickets to go to the events. We've been very fortunate with the events that we were given slightly cheaper rate on being able to host it. So we were able to keep some money behind for that. As you can see, the 3 events from Battleby and Gogarburn and Broom Hall. Expenditure in the past has just been from basically the hosting events, the food and donations and gifts with that. And there was the photographer with the branding as well that's come through. The accounts go up to the 30th of September 2020. That is the end of our financial year. So from there, will be a different story for the committee next time round. If there's any questions, please let me know.
I don't think there are any questions, Ailette. Do you have any more to say?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can we hand back to Stephen now, please?
Thanks, June. I think we're all getting used to different technological platforms, and it doesn't make it easy when you're doing this, but if there's any questions on that, they can always come back later on if there's anything anyone wants to raise. Just returning to the kind of more business side again, of the votes for the new committee, just to reiterate, we have over 500 members. There were 210 votes cast, and these were checked and verified to make sure there was no double counting, no non-members voting. Donald Trump's lawyers did not get involved, but I think they were watching. And we had 29 people who put themselves forward, which in itself is very impressive and highlights the passion for this group within the industry and the number of people who are keen to be involved. I'm happy to share the list with you now. There should be a slide on your screen with the names there. We can put it up. If not, I can just read it out. New committee will be Lizzie McLaughlin, Heather Wildman, Katrina Barclay, Lucy Mitchell, Catherine Sloan, Claire Hodge, Ailey Robertson, Ailette Rowan, June Geyer, and Emma Patterson-Taylor. So I think there's a really good mix of skills and experience there, and I'm sure they'll represent you well. For those who weren't successful this time or are keen to get involved in the future, there is within the Constitution, 1/3 of the committee will stand down every year, so there will always be opportunities to get involved in the future. But congratulations to those who've been voted on. It's great to see you all involved, and well done to everyone who put themselves forward to help out with this. Finally, from me, just before we move on, I'd just like to thank the founder members and the original committee for their hard work. There's been a huge amount of commitment and drive shown, as well as creativity, to literally create something from nothing. In particular, I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to Nina Clancy, who's put in a huge amount of work into this, and she didn't put herself up for election. Often a lot of the work done by this committee is unseen publicly. You see the kind of shiny front end, but I can assure you that everyone, and in particular Nina, has put a huge amount of work, and Nina's been a rock for the committee and has put in a huge amount of work behind the scenes. So on behalf of everyone, can I just thank Nina for that contribution.
Yeah.
That concludes the formal element of the AGM. I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting, and I wish the committee and the whole group every success in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'd like to have Johnny Willett on the screen, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, June. I have the pleasure of introducing Ashley McCulloch. Ashley is the Programme Manager of SEDI's Productivity Club Scotland. Now, Ashley leads this project, which offers free support to businesses by providing a peer-to-peer network to exchange great ideas. This was developed in partnership with the Scottish Government in late 2019, and it launched in late 2019, as a pilot project in response to low productivity growth nationally. It was established to create a focus for business leaders to drive productivity in their own businesses, and in its first year has welcomed over 500 members to its meetings and events. So I'm going to pass over to you now, Ashley. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Johnny, and I'd like to thank you all for having me here today. It sounds as though I've been on a very similar journey to you have been, albeit it's only been for the past year to 18 months. So I'm the Programme Manager for Productivity Club Scotland. You might be thinking, what is productivity and what do we mean by productivity? And when your job title contains productivity, that's the first question anyone asks when meeting me. The term's actually one used by economists, and it is used to judge the health of a nation. There are different types of productivity, but essentially it's a measurement of input versus output. And a lot of businesses don't actually measure productivity, but they will measure individual areas. So why are we talking about it, and why have we developed the club? Well, Paul Krugman, who's a professor of economics at Princeton University and also a columnist for the New York Times, is quoted as saying that productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it's almost everything. So a country's ability to improve its standards of living over time depends almost entirely on its ability to raise its output per worker. Productivity in Scotland and the UK is roughly the same. Some parts of Scotland are highly productive and only second to London. But as a nation, our productivity is much lower than those of other G7 countries. They are on average 13% higher in terms of year-on-year productivity growth than we are. And this productivity gap was exacerbated with the financial crisis in 2008. And we've had unusually weak growth since then, and that's been known as the productivity puzzle. And to put that in real terms, in 2018, it was estimated that if we had stayed on the same trajectory as before the financial crisis, then all of our wages would be approximately £5,000 higher than what they were at that time. Of course, there's major variations in sectors. Financial services seem to be highly productive, whereas retail and administrative services are far lower in terms of their productivity levels. From what I can obtain, agriculture in the past year, or the year that we have figures for between 2018 and 19, was sitting at 4%. But there's a pattern of fluctuations over the past 30 years. So actually there's an average of between 0.7 and 1% individual growth year on year. And that's actually slightly higher than what we've seen as a UK average, which is 0.3%. But before the financial crisis, that was 2%. These figures are obviously historical, and changes to productivity figures will be hugely impacted by the events of this year. And obviously looking forwards, we have the uncertainty of Brexit, the transition to a low carbon economy. These will all have impacts on what we measure, how we measure, and what the figures actually look like. So the Productivity Club was created in response to these trends and to these figures. And there's been a few government bodies, or lots of government bodies, that have created initiatives to help increase productivity in Scotland. But the Scottish Council for Development and Industry noticed a gap in the market, and when looking at other economies that have a similar makeup to ours, noticed that there were no business-led initiatives, and the economies that were stronger have very strong business-led initiatives looking specifically at productivity. The club launched as a pilot in 2019, and contrary to popular belief around what businesses would think about productivity, we attracted over 600 registrations in just 24 hours. And by November, that number had climbed to 1,000. The single focus for us is to create a forum for peer-to-peer learning across businesses. I suppose similar to the work that you do, but on a monthly basis, we look to identify businesses who are making improvements and get them to bring their stories. And it should be cross-sector and cross-industry, and it's about trying to learn those transferable improvements that can be taken into different businesses. Our initial focus for the pilot was to include Glasgow and Edinburgh, but as a result of this early success, we've received funding to expand the programme, and we're establishing clubs in North East Scotland, South of Scotland and Highlands and Islands. Our 6-month survey was taken in February this year, just before we went into lockdown, and over 65% of our respondents said they had identified areas to improve productivity. 80% had made new business connections, and over 90% had shared some of the information from the case studies with other people, colleagues or family members. And we're hoping to build on that momentum that's been created over the past year with our new clubs. So what have we learned so far? What have I learned in the past year? So technology has a huge part to play in productivity. There are huge gains that can be made through the deployment of technology, and we've heard from a number of businesses on the ways in which they are changing their operations as a result of new technology. This could be from automating simple processes using the Microsoft suite, but it also covers implementing new machines, data collection, data analysis, sensors, and full operating systems. Technology is changing every business and every sector, and these emerging technologies often people can find quite confusing. So we hear real stories of how people have went about securing these, the decision process, and anything that they would change in the past. Most often we hear people sharing the latest apps that have helped them make changes to their operations, but also some of these larger technologies that they've implemented. I've been listening recently to the podcast by Quality Meet Scotland, and they talk a lot about lots of different technology that is being deployed within the sector, and how that's improving productivity, particularly within agriculture. But that technology is only one area that's discussed, and there is obviously a human impact. Productivity is not about people working harder, it's about finding better ways to work. And employee engagement is a huge part to play, and plays a huge part in the club as well. Productive employees are happy, and happy employees are productive. And it's found that workers who are happy are between 12 and 20% more productive. Mental health, differentiating business models, succession planning, and well-being are all issues that we've discussed over the past year too. We hear case studies about how people and technology can work together to enhance jobs and can save time on tasks to allow people to use their discretion and judgment and create better work. One of the most interesting case studies we've come across in this area was by Scottish Water, who used better job planning and better communication with their team to reduce the time taken to complete construction projects. And through the work that they've done, they can now complete a project which used to take 8 weeks in 7 weeks. So there's a huge saving if you think about that in a construction site, multiplied across multiple sites. There's been lots of examples of collaboration as well, networks like the network that you're part of. But also businesses working with universities to invest in research and development and to benefit from their expertise. Businesses who invest in research and development are thought to be 13% more productive than firms that don't. But we've seen a lot more collaboration between businesses working with the local community, but also businesses working with competitors to actually try and manage their way through the impacts of this year. And now there's never been a better time to come together and share experience with your businesses. The strength in working with the community, strength in working with your sector, but also strength in working cross-sector and with different industries. I think the last point, and probably the most important point that we've seen over the past year, and the commonality amongst the people that we work with, is the willingness to improve and to do things better. One presenter opened with his desire and his infatuation with innovation, and I think that's what seems to be common amongst the people that we talk to on a monthly basis. So as part of the new clubs, we're trying to find more of these people, who are making improvements and have a great story to tell that could inspire other people to do something different and could help another business just like yours. We're keen to hear from businesses who can represent these new economies, these new sectors and these new areas that we're going into. We've already done some extensive stakeholder engagement with a number of partners. We are working with the Scottish Rural College, other sectoral groups, and tomorrow I'm having a meeting with Scottish Government about the Monitor Farm Legacy Initiative. So it's important that we really identify those great stories that are relevant to the businesses that we're going to be speaking to in these new areas. So if you'd like to hear more about the club, if you think you could present a case study, or you would just like to come along and hear what some of the other businesses are saying, it's free. You can contact me, or you can visit our website, which is www.productivity.scot. We have monthly meetings. It wasn't planned to be online, but we are developing them online in the short term, and we hope to be able to get out and about and meet more people as the restrictions ease. So we'll have 5 monthly meetings representing different areas until we're able to do that. So again, our website is www.productivity.scot. I'd like to thank you for your time today, and I hope to see some of you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ashley. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker today, Ailett Rowan. Ailett Rowan runs the family doorstep milk delivery business Rowan's Dairy. Rowan's Dairy was set up in 2015 to enable the family to add value to their milk, allowing a sustainable future on the farm for the generations to come. Ailett has worked in agriculture all her life after having been given the initial opportunity on a farm near Selkirk. She went on to study and work on farms up and down the country, giving her an in-depth knowledge of the industry. She has also worked at Lloyd's Register, formerly SFQC, for several years before starting a family with her husband, Stuart. She now farms in the southwest of Scotland alongside her husband and his family on their dairy, beef and sheep farm. And some of you might have seen the family starred in the hit show This Farming Life Season 2, first broadcast by the BBC in 2017. In July 2020, Ailett became a director of the Royal Highlands Agricultural Society. Ailett believes that agriculture should be inclusive, and that if you can do the job, you should, regardless of gender. She is a charismatic leader who does not see difficulties as problems, but as opportunities to be grasped, for which you just need to change your mindset. She also believes that if farmers want our products to be chosen in favour of imports and for a sustainable price, we need to include the consumer on the food journey. In her businesses, she has done just this and continues to do so through social media and TV. So thank you, Ailett. Sorry, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Slightly blushing. A little bit about backstory about Rowan's Dairy. So as Catherine stated there, in 2015 we started the business. Falling milk price, again, familiar story. It's been years and years in thought and production, trying to come up with the idea of trying to add value to the milk. How do you do that? And putting it onto doorsteps, let people taste the milk that we were so passionate about, was obviously the way forward for what we wanted to do. So we took a leap of faith, and in September 2015 we launched that. But the whole thing has been a huge learning curve, quite a big struggle as well, because all of us were working on farm. So dealing with the public like that was quite a different situation. We'd never done anything like this. So having all the infrastructure in the background to deal with was certainly different. We have, over the years, approached it. We started doing trade deliveries, and we went into doorstep deliveries, which certainly pushed on the business, and within the Dumfries and Galloway area that we were delivering to. So basically, to bring it up to date, we have lockdown. I, along with just about everybody else in the country, would have been sitting watching telly in the evening, hearing that we're having a national lockdown, schools are closing, all non-essential shops will be closing. And we, at the time, had my father staying, and it was all discussion that night was, he can't go home to mum, the kids are not able to go to school, what are we going to do with them? I personally send my kids to school because homeschooling is not an option. So it was kind of a panic mode. And then with that, because of the business, and we're quite high on social media, all of our accounts and email accounts are linked through to my phone. I noticed the battery going down quite quickly and having a look-see, and there was messages coming in saying, can we have a delivery? Can we up our quantity? And took a few minutes to kind of figure out what was going on. And then it was just like, oh, we're not the non-essential shops, we are the essential shop, and we are landing on people's doorsteps every day. So we need to find out what was happening. The next morning, we came into literally hundreds of inquiries. We have existing customers who wanted to up their deliveries. They wanted extra milk, extra yogurts, eggs, etc. We then thought, well, how are we going to manage this? Because on a normal day-to-day basis, if we canvassed for new customers, we were only looking at ever taking on about 25 new people a week. That allowed us to have the time to get them into the system, locate their properties, and be able to provide the best service to them. We didn't have this luxury anymore. We were taking on hundreds a day. We only had myself and another full-time lady in the office. My part-time lady, which a couple of months beforehand, we'd actually reduced her hours down. And she was away on holiday. She'd come back and it was like, well, your hours are back up to normal. We then had to look at taking on some new staff in the office. We took on an extra 2 members of staff in our office, which then created an extra problem from that, because our office was based upon our robotic milking robots, because our herds milk through robots, and there was a room above that which our office was in, which at the time, looking back, was quite cute because you could hear the cows mooing in the background and it was all very linked to the farm. But it became very evident then, and obviously needing to social distance, that could no longer happen. So we then had to, during lockdown, move our office across to an empty cottage and try and get that kitted out, phones moved and everything, while BT had no interest in helping because they were only dealing with the essential workers. That created problems. We then, with our milk rounds, had to bring on new drivers. We had to buy new vehicles as well, which all increased extra problems because of not being able to move around the country, not being able to get these things because everything was locked down. The amount of yogurts that people used to get were only held in a normal sized fridge. We then had to hire in from a local business who unfortunately was, during the lockdown, suffered because of that. We hired his refrigerated trailer to be able to store all these products in. We slept, everything in the office. The staff members, we tried to bring in extra treats. So a local business baking lady, she used to bake for us on a daily basis to be able to keep everybody happy with that. Drivers, because they're working through the night, we brought in extra products, juice and all the little bits just to try and make it a bit easier for them, because they were taking on a huge amount of extra work. Didn't really go home that much. Meals were brought into the office for me. It seemed to be months and months of just keep on taking. Just basically, we just had to keep saying yes. We took all the customers' details and we got them on, and we just pushed through. There was no room to be able to think that we couldn't do that, because there was a lot of, especially the elderly, needing these deliveries brought to them. Lockdown has given us the opportunity to expand our products that we deliver. So we were able to source local potatoes, and we also bought in a couple of pallets of toilet rolls. So there's not much you can't sort out with eggs, milk, potatoes and toilet rolls. So our customers were covered. I think it has been, at the same time, unfortunately, the kids probably did suffer through that. Their schooling definitely suffered. They spent a lot of time on the farm, which was great. Can't argue with that. So their education through that has been much, much better. But they didn't get the attention that they needed because the business swallowed that up. So it's one thing that needs to happen, is a bit of more balance, I think, because in reality, that's what it is. Everyone says, well, come 5, 6 o'clock at night, that's it, you go home. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I call it chasing unicorns. It's basically chasing the impossible dream of work-life balance for me. Kids are very good. I have some key friends that understand how my brain does or doesn't work, because I'm still quite often being chased saying, "Are you not picking up your children?" But they kind of pick up the pieces behind me, which is really, really good and just gives a bit of relief. Slightly embarrassing, actually. You're meant to be able to remember about your kids, but I don't. I don't think I have anything really extra to add. If you have any questions, by all means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ailett. Now we're going to move on to our question and answer sessions. So hopefully we'll bring Ashley back into the screen too. Just remind you all who are watching at home, if you'd like to ask a question, if you can please put your question in the comments box, which I believe will appear below your video. So you might need to minimize the video slightly and scroll down on your screen to the comments box, but just add some questions there if you've got questions for our speakers. The first question I have this morning then, Ailett, a question for you. What's the most valuable lesson you have learned, and what would you do differently throughout the last sort of 6 months of the pandemic?
What's the most valuable lesson you've learned? I think possibly, I don't know if it's a valuable lesson necessarily, but just although we have taken on customers and they were desperate for products and they've not stayed with us because the inevitable, the supermarket's back open and that's how they've just gone back to that, which is a shame. But at the same time, I understand that humans are creatures of habit, and at the end of the day, we provided a service and we did it because we wanted to help, not because it propelled our business forwards or there was any money to be made from that. At the end of the day, if anything else happens again, we're here for anybody that needs us. It was providing a service to everybody. What would you do differently? Not eat so much. Yeah, the home baking wasn't so good. Not eat so much. And then come later on at night, Dad used to bring me a gin while I was working in the office at night. That doesn't work either.
I'm sure many of us can associate with that during the pandemic. Thank you, Ailett. A question for Ashley now. So there are now 500 members in Productivity Club Scotland. What activity do you have planned for the next 6 months?
So we've actually, the 500 members are those that come along to our event. So we've had 500 people coming along to the activities that we've run for the past year. We're currently sitting around 1,300 members, but our aim by the end of the pilot is around 4,000 members across all of Scotland. The next 6 months, I would like to say that I know what's going to happen. I thought I knew what was going to happen in the past 6 months, but we had to change things very quickly. We developed a plan in July for what we thought the new clubs in the North East, the Highlands and Islands, and the South of Scotland would look like based on the geographies. And we didn't think we would be launching them as online clubs. So I think it will be taking things a step at a time, listening to what people are telling us they want from us, and trying to deliver that as quickly and effectively as we can.
Thank you, Ashley. Next question here for Ailett. As business owners, you've had to change your operations while also balancing a home life with additional family and caring responsibilities. What has this period meant for you?
A lot of stress. A lot of pressure and a lot of stress. I was very, very fortunate that because of lockdown, Dad couldn't go home. So he was the one that made sure that there was meals put on the table. The kids were looked after. Any sort of bits of schoolwork or anything that had to be done, he looked at. Basically, my father picked up the reins on all the domestic issues, which is not at my time in life. That's kind of not how that was meant to be. I think without him, it would have been very, very different. So I just have to be grateful that he was there for that for me.
I think there's a lot of families in Scotland that have, had to rely on relatives as well. So there'll be many people that can identify with that too. Ashley, you mentioned that one of your goals at the end of the 6 months is to have 4,000 members. Can you tell us a bit more about any other goals you have for the end of that period?
So obviously that's just a number that we're looking to hit. What the value of the club is really people hearing good stories, being inspired, doing something in their business and it making a change. And that's what we want to see more of. So if we don't hit the numbers, what we want to see is the value. We want to see more businesses, more members coming back to us to say, we've made a change as a result of someone we've met or something we've done through the club. And that's really what's going to make the change for us, make the change for individual businesses, for the country as a whole.
Thanks, Ashley. Ailey, going back to you, another question for you here. What sort of help, support would you have wanted from your business network, from a business perspective, over the past 6 months and as we move forward during the pandemic itself as well?
I think possibly a financial support because of the sudden influx of customers coming in and the sheer quantity of products that we had to put out. We were then having to lay out all the money. So the amount that we spent on yogurts per month tripled. We had to buy more vehicles, employ more staff, and we are a business that just utilises what's in the bank account. We're fortunate in that situation. If we need to buy something new, we have to wait till we've got that money. That was a judgment call that we try not to have any borrowings or loans from that. So there was a financial support that actually was holding us back. Business support from that, we basically just had to, we were the ones that had to just call in favours, like the local business that was unable to trade during lockdown and we hired their trailer. We were just calling in favours left, right and centre, just trying to, and then obviously we had to furnish our new office situation that we moved into during lockdown. So that was just phoning around, making phone calls for people who were not in an office. Can we borrow this? Can we do that? There's a lot of begging and borrowing going on, and all these local companies and things like that are there for business support. We're spending a lot of time talking about what they were going to do and, oh yes, we'll do this, but there was no action. There needed to be more action and less chat, basically. That was frustrating.
Thank you, Ailey. A question for Ashley now. How long is the pilot for, and is it likely to be extended due to the pandemic?
So the pilot was due to finish in April next year, and it's been extended for another year to look at the new models in the different areas. And obviously we hope that we'll be able to extend beyond that based on hopefully the continued success.
Thanks, Ashley. Ailey, going back to you, another question here. What inspired you during lockdown to increase your productivity and add value to your network?
Probably just the overwhelming feeling that you're actually helping. It seemed to go more from, yes, it was a business, but it just changed into just doing something for people, not just running a business. Everything we were doing was helping. And when you had people on the phone saying, look, I'm desperate for this, I can't get out, my husband can't get out, I have to self-isolate because of him, it made you feel a lot better about that. We also spent a lot of time not talking directly to new people coming in, but we knew of customers that were a bit older or already staying in because they didn't go out and about. We made sure that we had people that phoned them to make sure that they were getting what they needed, and if not, we went to the shops and got them their products to be able to put onto their doorsteps for them. So it's just that overwhelming feeling that we're actually doing something. It wasn't about business, it was just being a decent human being at that time.
Thanks, Ailey. Well, thanks, Ailey and Ashley. That brings this morning's Q&A session to a close. So I'll now hand over to June, who will draw this morning's session as a whole to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we are. Thank you so much to our speakers, to Ashley McCulloch from SCDI's Productivity Club Scotland. That was a great insight into your organisation, and I'd like to reiterate your website, www.productivity.scot. A great idea, and I'm sure some of us will be able to get in touch with you about some things in the future. To Ailit, who is part of our committee, she's a wonderful part of the jigsaw. She has stepped in as treasurer recently and organised our social media for us. She's an extremely busy lady. So thank you so much, Ailit, for speaking as well. To Johnny and Catherine for chairing the question and answers. Really sorry that some of you weren't able to get some questions in, but we had quite a pile of them to get through there. The Royal Bank of Scotland, thank you so much for hosting us today. Stephen Young for helping to formalise us. And to the old committee, thank you for everything that we've done so far. And to our new committee, I look forward to working with you in the future. Wishing everybody at this event to stay safe and well, and we look forward to getting in touch with you all again in the near future. If you have any comments or suggestions, please get in touch with us through our Facebook page, and we'll take on board these comments at our next committee meeting. Thank you so much, and to Erica for working in the back rooms as well. See you all again soon. Bye.